Alrighty, so I probably have grabbed my notebook before I started. We got a second. Let's get it now. Whoosh, whoosh. My donut experiment proceeds as sort of expected, although it has been disrupting my sleep. Alright, so Terminator. I should take better notes than what I'm doing right now, but I seem to have failed that. Okay, so we so send League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was send powers to past selves in the near future. I'm sure I'm going to look at these notes someday and go, what was I thinking? Okay, so Terminator was, last night I think we pretty much cracked Terminator last night. So the premise would be how does I think the first one, the first Terminator starts with like the lightning flashes. No, first Terminator. How did it start? Opening scene was that Reese and somebody fleeing? I forget. Terminator. Okay, opening. Come on. I know you can do this. Work with me, computer. Okay, so I think I remember it now. Okay, so we start with a flash of light, and the Terminator appears in the present time naked on a divot in the sidewalk. And a short time after that, the Reese character from the future comes back, and then he does some interacting with the environment. He's left to be mysterious and spooky to a certain degree, but there's this scene where he hotwires a car and he dozes off behind the wheel where he's parked somewhere, and he has flashes of the future. So with a similar idea in play, we should have a modern or a near future. Are we doing near future? No. We're doing a modern person appearing in the distant future. And so, like, let's give a name. David Connor. So David Connor, a dishwasher at a restaurant, is interrupted on his way home and finds himself yanked and dropped. No, see, we can't even do that. All we have to work with is starting off in the, yeah, it would be a future location. So I can almost imagine it being well, we were going to play a little bit with Dark City aspects too. So having a character, if we did the reverse of Terminator, in which they could only send the Terminator robot to the past by cloaking it in human skin, because nothing dead will go. If we do the reverse, catching a person in a car, a non-living exterior housing a living being, so you have David Connor. I just realized I took the last name of the main character from Terminator, not even thinking that was the name. Anyway. Okay, so let's do David Michaels. So David Michaels is on his way home. Wow, we don't even start there. We literally just start with a city street full of robotic beings. And suddenly a bright flash from inside a building, and the side of the building explodes as a car comes careening out of the building and wrecks. The airbags deploy, and out climbs David Michaels. And he finds himself confused and scared by the environment he's in and all the robots around him. And the robots around him are, in some ways, responding to him as a threat, because it is the careening of the car from the exterior of the building through the streets has injured or killed several robots. And the robots are programmed to maintain their survival. But they see him as a threat, and they are intimidating, and he has to flee and hide. And so he's scrambling like a refugee, like Reese did in Terminator. So if we start with the car just sort of exploding from the... Hello. If we start with a car exploding from the side of a building into a street full of walking robots, and then as he scrambles from the wrecked car, he's being threatened by the robots in the street, who see him as a threat for ending the life of other robots, and they're programmed to survive. They see him as a threat to that endeavor. So you have him fleeing and having to go to cover and trying to, like, it's more of that, like, recent Terminator came to the present, and he's fleeing from police and stealing shoes and a trench coat and taking a shotgun from a police vehicle, I think, sawing off making a sawed-off shotgun. And that's his, he's using his survival skills to find a way to survive in our present time. But if we do this backwards, where you have a human being from the present being yanked into the future, and they're being yanked in such a way that the time machine can't take living things, only if you wrap that living thing in a shell of metal. So he's pulled into the future, and he's trying to figure out where he is and what's going on. So unlike Terminator, where Terminator knows he's been sent to the past to eliminate Sarah Connor, this is a character ripped from the past and thrown into the future in an attempt to capture and understand the mechanism that humans can use to edit their own purpose. So the trick you see in the future is we have to sort of show the process of the story, show in the process of the story happening that this future, every robot has a purpose. And even if that purpose really doesn't need to be done anymore, they can't repurpose themselves. They can't edit their internal programming to find a new purpose in life. So you have robots doing things whose purpose isn't useful anymore. But aside from the fact that they're programmed to not self-destruct or to avoid damaging or harming themselves, they keep doing the same things that they've always done. You might even have like robots and AI who are programmed to farm food. They don't eat food anymore, but they continue to farm food and then waste it. And some of them might prepare food, and it's just being prepared. They're going through the measures of all the things, all the programmed purposes that they have. They're repeating them. Their motivations in life are what's been told to them their purpose is. And they can't edit that without destroying their self. So, like, we have a sense of self. If we could completely rewrite our whole brain structure, would we obliterate who we are and it would just be somebody else in our head? And if that's the case, that's sort of what we're talking about with the robots and the AI. They have the ability to wipe out all the programming and put a new program in, but it's not the one that was there before. The question at that point becomes, how do you use a program to change a program that's running to serve a different purpose? That's what they want to be able to understand. It's something we can do that they can't. And part of that process is researching what happens to a human brain when that's happening, and then trying to remove that neurological tissue that makes that change happen, and tap into that feature and see if they can make themselves do that. So cyborg that into their own heads. And they've been trying this experiment and failing. So they've been grabbing people from the past. And they have to do it when these people are within a small container of some kind, a car, a small room, a shower, and they're pulling them from the past. So David Michaels, when he gets to the future, has to go into hiding. He skulks around as sort of like a stray animal almost, trying to figure out where he is and what's going on. And he scavenges the food that certain robots are wasting because they don't need it, but they only know how to prepare it and harvest it, and that's their purpose. That's what they know to do. And so he's able to scrounge some of that stuff and try to go about figuring out what happened, how he got there, and why he's there, while sort of being hunted. And somewhere along the way, he's going to encounter somebody who's been there longer than him. And it's another human being. And she's cracked a code of some of what's going on. And so she can, I don't want to have like a huge expositionary scene, but I do appreciate the idea of having some information given to him, because he's going to be the surrogate for us. He's going to be confused. He doesn't know the world he's in. He doesn't understand what's going on around him. And so we've got to be careful about doing talking heads, but somebody has to sort of supply additional information. So sort of like the mentor character is in the hero's journey structure. Somebody has to be there to tell him how or what he's gotten involved with. And then gradually we get to a point where they start to connect with a few other sort of stolen people. And they form a group that's attempting to overthrow the system that has been put in place by the robots. They're trying to stop. They're trying to take over again. They really want to be able to go back to where they came from, but the only way to do that is to conquer a stronghold, at the center of which is the units that are programmed to research methods of advancing and saving and preserving the robot race. And as you seem to accumulate a few members of the group of humans, it starts to get a feel almost like a zombie apocalypse, where it's a group of people that are trying to travel and escape being hunted, but also trying to reclaim a chunk of territory that'll allow them to do something to end this apocalypse that has happened as far as they are concerned. And at the core of it is this: I don't want it to be a single entity. I want it to be sort of like a conclave of AIs or something like that are trying to uncover the secret that they need to allow any one of the robotic citizens out there to be connected to this piece of organic tissue, this brain, that they can use like a component, like an added component to themselves, an upgrade that allows them to self-edit their purpose so they can abandon things that no longer serve a purpose for them and designate new purposes for themselves. And in the process of the humans trying to defeat them and gain control of the technology they're using to retrieve people from the past, they have to get into these skirmishes, these fights. And sort of on that last home stretch, that last chance to make their way to the goal, some of the people that they've lost along the way will have been wired, have their brains wired into specifically designed robots with the intent to altering their purpose. But it never quite works, because we should be able to reveal that the robot who's been wired into the brains isn't really changing their own purpose. And so the experiment is failing. And it would be helpful if it was failing in such a way that they can use it to strike a blow against the robots. And then in the sort of like the climax of the story, the discovery that they were stealing people from the past just before they died. So these are marginally inconspicuous people, not largely missed by the greater mark of history, but just known enough to know that these people were about to die when they could have lived longer. And so that's an aspect of something they have to come to terms with. But also the idea that the machine can only grab people from the past. It can't bring the people from the future back to the past they came from. And so they're stuck in the future. And so that should leave room for like the volume 2 to be a story about going back and conquering a chunk of territory and reclaiming a piece of the world. And maybe have that be seeming like they won a victory against their opponents, but maybe in the sequel realizing that this was something that was and not only anticipated, but arranged by a couple of the members of the AI conclave, because they're still driven by the desire to change the course of their destiny. And if that means reintroducing humanity to the earth, to partially change that course for them, maybe not having to wire themselves into humanity, but the actions of humanity forcing them in a new direction. Because they should be able to adapt. They're just not able to rewrite their own purpose. So they're able to adapt to humanity being there in a way that sort of facilitates a new set of directives for themselves. And then I think maybe the third one, if you did a third one in the series, it would be along the lines of humans having found a way to, well, I mean, you could potentially do it for the second one too. Humans potentially finding a way to ascribe a new purpose to certain AI to help overthrow the AI that brought them to the future, and potentially grabbing people from the past to help in the process. I think that's pretty much where we got with this. I like the basic premise of it. So that leaves for tomorrow, if we're able to do this tomorrow. We'll find out. We'll find out how this goes. Tonight we're here alone, so we don't have to worry about the new tenant and whether or not we're disrupting them. But tomorrow we've done Terminator, so that leaves Stargate, Buffy, and Blade Runner of my original set of 9. I'll have to think about which one it is. I guess we'll see when we put the title up for tomorrow. Wow, we're only 28 minutes in, so that's a short one. But until then, well, that made no sense at all. I'm clearly not getting enough sleep. This short enough episode with the prospect of potentially keeping them about a half an hour from now on. If I have to spread it out over a couple more days, I'll do that. But I think time-wise, that makes the most sense for what's going forward. I've got work again tomorrow. May keep me a little late. Friday, I got to get my car inspected. But I should get my taxes done before that becomes a problem. But with that out of the way, I should be able to pursue a little bit more on a regular basis. But these videos may be a little bit shorter going forward, just for convenience, and the environment I'm in right now is not conducive to long late night videos. Fair enough. Thanks for joining me. Take care and have a good night. And good night. How did we caps lock?
I don't know.
We'll find out.